Is intermittent fasting a wise thing to do when starting the carnivore diet? Let's get into it. What's shaking, bacon? So intermittent fasting is when you go long windows of time without eating. Now, I've done this before. I've done this when on a carnivore diet. I've done it when I've not been on a carnivore diet. I found when I did it and I wasn't on a carnivore diet, it was tough. I mean tough. I obsessed about my next meal all the time because you have that steady flow of carbohydrates in your day. So I found it was easier for me when I was fat adapted. So when I had just protein and fat and there were zero carbs in my diet, intermittent fasting was easy for me. Now, I don't recommend it, and here's why. At least, especially not in the beginning. Because in the beginning, you're learning your hunger signals and you're trying to nourish your body. So some people go into long windows of time without eating because they're so satiated. You're supposed to eat till you're full. And then when you're hungry again, eat. That could be 3 hours later. That could be 10 hours later. When I have a lot of red meat, I can go long windows of time without eating again. But as soon as I'm hungry, I'm happy to eat. I'm not trying to make a decision to eat or not eat specific windows of the day. We want to feed our bodies. Lots of us who have gotten to this point where we're going towards a carnivore zero carb diet, we're dealing with a damaged metabolism. And what we want to do is strengthen that metabolism. You have to feed a metabolism to strengthen it. And one of the most nutrient dense foods to do that with is red meat. Now, you can have any type of meat on a carnivore diet. Some people have dairy and cheese. But red meat is usually the safest, best way to go, and it's actually very affordable. If you made ground beef your primary food option and you had 1 or 2 pounds of that a day, or maybe just ground beef as your staple, it's pretty affordable to do if you can get your ground beef for just a few dollars a pound. Some people go as far as a whole one meal a day, that's called OMAD, where they're only having, say, breakfast or lunch or dinner. And then they go 24 hours again until they eat. Some experienced carnivores might naturally do that. I've naturally done that. I've never gone out of my way to go a long window of time without eating unless I made it a goal. But when I just regularly do carnivore or the lion diet, I just eat when I'm hungry. Except for right now where I'm limiting my calories this month to 2,000 calories a day. And by calories, I use that interchangeably with 2 pounds of meat a day because when I have a pound of ground beef, that's 1,000 calories minus a few calories. Literally, it's like 998 calories or something like that. I find that I have about 2 pounds of meat a day, and when it's red meat, I'm doing pretty good. But when I go to exercise, it is not enough fuel in my body to manage exercise and my day-to-day routine, and I'm tired and whipped at the end of the day. One of the side effects I get from that, from not eating enough, is I don't sleep very well when I don't get enough food in my body. So when I'm under 3 pounds, 3.5 pounds of fuel in my body, of like 3.5 pounds of meat, my sleep gets hit hard. Last night, I was exhausted. I went to bed at 10:45 and I was up by 2:30, wide awake for 3 hours. That tends to happen quite regularly when I'm not getting enough food in the day. So one thing I've learned is the more I eat, I still lose weight. That's the amazing thing. Too many people are trying to lose weight fast and you still lose the weight. It's just maybe going to be a little slower. Some people, it speeds it up. Everyone's a little different. But the one thing everyone has in common is it's repairing your metabolism. Your scale might even go up a little bit, but that is irrelevant because you want to pay attention to your inches. It's always inches, not pounds. Remember that. Inches, not pounds. Inches, not pounds. Have I gotten that through? You might put on 10 pounds on the scale. You might lose 2 inches on your waist. That's ideal, right? That's the way my weight loss has been going. I'm not a big fan of intermittent fasting, especially Dr. Fung's intermittent fasting, for a few reasons. Don't get me wrong, I've done it, and I'll probably do it again at times in the future because I'm seasoned and experienced with it. I've done it on and off for years. But I do have some criticisms about the way his book is written and his views on that, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I do have my views, and they're just my views. Now, I do have a nutrition course under my belt as a massage therapist, and I did really well in that course. I think the biggest thing I have against trying to do intermittent fasting when you're starting carnivore is you're trying to get back in touch with your hunger signals. And when you're trying to get back in touch with your hunger signals and you're screwing around with that by limiting the amount of times you can eat in a day, it's going to make it really difficult for you to stick to this way of eating, because you're going to get hungry, and say you start with brunch or lunch, and then you get off work and you're going to think to yourself, man, I'm hungry, right? You get to the time of the day where you're starting to want dinner and munchies, and it's force of habit. And you've been doing it your whole life, and now you're gonna want something, and next thing you know, you're pulling into a drive-through, right? You're just at a higher risk, or going for something in the fridge that one of your kids has in there, or your spouse has in there, and you're gonna go for that because you're hungry and you gave in. So you're making it an uphill battle for yourself. Stay full on the foods you can eat, and ideally stick with red meat. If you're getting diarrhea in the beginning of this way of eating, stick to leaner meats. Sometimes that helps. Try cutting back a little bit on salt and adding potassium, because salt loosens your stool if you have a lot of it. Your hunger signals are going to take a while to reset. It usually takes me a few months. And then I go long windows of time without eating, not because I'm trying to intermittent fast, just because I'm satisfied with the amount of food I ate at breakfast or lunch, and I might go hours without eating again. Sometimes I don't even have dinner. But if I'm hungry, guaranteed, I will always eat. Some people might have the stamina and willpower after a few months of this to try it. I subscribe more to eating when you're hungry. Simple as that. It works for some people. That's their choice, and that's their body. If that's what they want to do, I recommend it. I recommend anything that works for you. But learn you first before you start experimenting with different ways of eating. Switching to a carnivore diet is a huge transition for your body. Why would you add another thing to it to complicate learning how to eat a carnivore diet and maintain that way of eating? When I read Dr. Fung's book, which I've read a few times on intermittent fasting, there's a few things I really take away from that book that might be a little controversial, and I've actually discussed with my sister-in-law. We've been at odds with this. And you can look at lots of interviews with him. He constantly goes on about how every other diet doesn't work. That's nonsense, right? He also talks about how starving yourself with calories and exercising doesn't work. You know, that's not true. Some people have to destroy other theories to make theirs look better. And he does argue in his book that, you know, he's not getting anything from this because he's not selling any diet plans or meals or anything like that. Well, he's selling a book, so he is getting something from it. He really promotes, through most of the book, how calories don't matter. It's all about hormones. And he's so extreme in this direction. He's not necessarily wrong. I agree. A lot of it's about hormones. But then at the end, he always slips in, but you do kind of got to pay attention to calories. And that's what I find really frustrating, because he talks out of both sides of his mouth in his book. And if you reread it, well, you'll catch it numerous times. I don't mean to sound critical of intermittent fasting, because I've done it myself and I will do it again. But I don't like how he constantly criticizes every other way of eating. He looks like a guy who's never lifted weights in his life. And he starts talking about how exercise does this or doesn't do that. And he just reminds me of a typical scientist. Like, there's college and there's university. University knows it all on paper. College does it. And he's not balanced in that direction. He's all about studies and numbers. And that's not always how life works out. Some things look great on paper, and then when it's actually put into practice, it doesn't work. And sometimes intermittent fasting falls into that category. For me, here's the problems I had personally with intermittent fasting that are barely touched on in his book. One, hypothyroidism. I have hypothyroidism. It's a stress on the thyroid gland. And for me, it really tired me out. It really doesn't do much for me. I do get to this point after a 3-day window where I feel amazing. And that's because, as my doctor said, who's a big fan of intermittent fasting, by the way, all the blood that's working in your digestive system is now freed up to work in other parts of your body. So you get this weird window at 3 days where you just have this beautiful mental clarity. Your joints feel amazing. I literally feel like I'm 18 years old again. I'm not exaggerating. I feel great. And I can't stress this enough. I don't recommend doing that in the beginning. It's too much to take on when converting to a carnivore way of eating. Do that months 3 or 4. First, work on fueling your body. Another thing that is kind of downplayed in the book, or barely mentioned, is gout. I also had gout, and it always made my gout worse. So I had 2 major reasons why I had to stop intermittent fasting years ago when I was plagued with these problems. And so I'm only dealing with one problem. I find in the summer, if I get up to about a 18-hour window without eating, my body starts to cool down very fast. If I know I'm going on a hike or somewhere outside and it's gonna be warm all day, I'll make sure I'll have a nice big meal at dinner the night before, not be hungry the next day, because I'm typically not hungry in the mornings. And then by the afternoon, I can be out in that 40-degree heat and feel great. To me, it feels like it's 32, 30. It's quite comfortable. I can't stress this enough. For me, what it comes down to is stick to carnivore. Don't complicate it in the beginning, especially with intermittent fasting. Once you're old hat with carnivore, then start introducing it, if you feel the need to do it. There's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna watch this video and say, well, it worked great for me, and that's cool. That's great that it worked great for you. You're greatly increasing the difficulty of starting this way of eating because you're gonna be going through carb withdrawal and hunger. And you wanna ignore the hunger by keeping yourself fueled. And if you're fueled, the carb withdrawal is minimized dramatically. So keep that in mind. Thanks for watching this video. If you can, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there who have had great success with intermittent fasting, and I'm not against it. As I've said lots of times in this video, I just firmly believe it shouldn't be done in the beginning. It's gonna make you wanna cheat. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it informative. I know a lot of people will disagree with this video because intermittent fasting has worked for them. If you're already used to intermittent fasting, you're probably gonna have a different experience. I had good experiences with it, and I also had bad experiences with it. I just wanna make sure you set yourself up the best way possible when starting a diet like this carnivore diet, especially during World Carnivore Month. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.